Game ones are behind us, and game twos start tonight. But before we get to that point, we want to break down everything we've seen to this point. First thoughts, and hey, are these series already over? Now, as always, drop a comment down below. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? And hey, I just want to hear your thoughts. If you're a fan of these teams, go off down below. Let's kick it off here with the first series that we saw, which was the Indiana Pacers hosting Giannis Antetokounmpo, or at least that should be the name of the visiting team because, well, Giannis was the only one to show up in game number one. For the Bucks, they shot 24% from three, and that was the story of this game because Giannis showed up, 36 points, 12 rebounds. But outside of that, the score did Milwaukee justice as Indiana won 117-98. I do want to say this. At the end of game one, Damian Lillard, he was active. He was chirping at Tyrese Halliburton, and he was basically saying, hey, when I come back, this is going to be a different series. Well, Damian Lillard, I don't know how quickly you can return to form after those blood clots, but I think at this point, any version of Damian Lillard saves this series from being a sweep, because as of right now, if Dame comes back even half of what he was, the best I can really give Milwaukee is one game in this series. So for Indiana to have six players score double figures, for the bigs to dominate the way that they did, and the fact that Damian Lillard's coming off of blood clots, I think at the most, this should be a 5-game series, and Indiana will close it out on home court. Now, the only overtime game we saw was between the Nuggets and the LA Clippers. And on one hand, the Clippers looked so good, right? Because for the first 3.5 quarters, they dominated this game. There was always like an 8 to 10 point lead for the Clippers, but then things fell apart. I do want to say on the side of the Clippers, Harden had 32, 11, and 6. Kawhi 22 and 6, even though at some points he kind of disappeared offensively in this game. But like Harden had a 15-point quarter. Kawhi had a 15-point quarter. And the fact that they were dominating for the first 3.5 quarters, you would have thought that they would have got this win. But by the effort of Russell Westbrook, by the effort of the supporting cast around Nikola Jokic, the Denver Nuggets were able to stay in the race for the entirety of it and pull away at the end of overtime there. Again, they did it by shooting well, of course, for one. Russell Westbrook giving them 15 and 8. Honestly, Jokic, again, 29, 12 and 9, almost a 30-point triple-double. But I think the MVP of this game was Russell Westbrook, man, because sure, he would have a boneheaded play, then he would have a MVP Russ kind of a play. There is no middle ground with Russ, but those highs were high, and they were statement plays that eventually won this Nuggets team the game. So shout out to Russell Westbrook, continuing to prove his value here in 2025 here in the NBA. Going forward, for the Clippers, you cannot play Bogdan Bogdanovic, whether if he's fouling, whether if he's just playing terrible defense or missing shots. He didn't do anything productive in game number one. So going forward, Bogdanovic can't play, and as long as they don't fall apart like they did, I still think the Clippers come out on top of this series. Now, if you want to talk about a team that fell apart, it was the Detroit Pistons. On the road, you look great with a team that is relatively inexperienced with a younger head coach. They dominated, not really dominated, but they controlled the game. That's a better word. And they were up going into the fourth quarter by 8. But then things flipped on their head. The New York Knicks opened up the fourth quarter, led by Brunson and Cameron Payne, to a 21-0 run, man. They took over the game to start that fourth quarter, and I don't know if it was experience, if it was the nerves of the Detroit Pistons, whatever the case may have been. Brunson led the way with 34 and 8, and they were able to get game number 1. For Detroit, I do want to say this. They had 4 players on their roster that scored at least 19 points. I think Tobias Harris had 25. The MVP of this game in game number 1 was Cameron Payne. He had 14 points in 15 minutes, and a lot of those came in that 21-0 run. So shout out to the Knicks for continuing to fight. But honestly, I think if we learned anything in game number 1, the Pistons are ready for the moment, and they are going to make this a tough and longer series as long as their inexperience and their nerves don't hold them back. The first road team to win a playoff game in this year's playoffs was the Minnesota Timberwolves. And hey, that's what they say. A playoff series doesn't start until a road team wins a game. Minnesota did that, winning 117-95. And this goes back to the Pacers and Bucks argument. It was the Pacers versus Giannis. In this one, it was the Timberwolves versus Luka Doncic. LeBron, of course, I think his stats looked okay at the end of the day, but again, he didn't do anything until about the third, fourth quarter when the game was already kind of out of hand. But from the second quarter on, Minnesota outscored the Lakers by 29 points. They just dominated. And hey, when you want to look at things that are outliers, well, maybe it's not an outlier because Minnesota turned up like this last postseason, but they did make 21 threes and they shot 50% from the floor. So historic night shooting for the Timberwolves offensively. Can that continue? Can they bring that into game number two? If they do, they're going to go up 2-0 and they're probably going to win this series in quick fashion. But I do expect that to tone down a little bit, come back to where we saw in the regular season. And if that is the case, Luka, as long as he can get some help around him, the Lakers should be able to tie this series up tomorrow night. But I do want to say, in game number one, Anthony Edwards was great. We know that, right? He's our superstar. But Naz Reid was the MVP. 23 points, 5 rebounds, shot great from the outside, as we know he does. And it was a huge win for the Timberwolves because now they have an opportunity to close this out on their home court if they continue to shoot the ball as well as they have. Now, moving over to Sunday slates of games, the Thunder opened it up with a 51-point ass whooping over the Memphis Grizzlies. I do want to cut the Grizzlies some slack, though, because for the Grizzlies, 36 hours before this game, they had to go into it game plan for a completely different team, and it was a win or go home situation. And again, after that game, they got directly on a flight heading to the number one seed, and of course, on the number one seed's home court. And that could have been a reason why they lost by 51 points. Game planning for a different team, didn't have a lot of time to prep for them, and their legs were already tired from just a day and a half before. But 51 points is, again, 51 points. I do want to say that the Thunder in this game dominated. 6 players in double figures. And again, they held the Stars of Memphis to very, very off nights. Jaren Jackson had 4 points. Desmond Bane had 9 points. And they won by 51 points while the consensus MVP on their team in Shea only had a season low 15 points, which a majority of those came in the first quarter. Shea, again, season low 15 points, but let's keep in mind he only played about 2.5 quarters. This Thunder team, I think, proved a couple of things. They're ready, they're hungry, and their experience from last year is carrying over into this year, and they're ready to make a deep run. Talking about a team that's ready to make a deep run, or at least again, the Boston Celtics won their game 103-86. Again, I think the score did the road team justice, but playoff Derek White is back. He is the best player on the Celtics team, apparently, come playoff time, because he had 30 points, shot tremendous from the field, and he just turned it on yet again because last year in the playoffs, of course, amazing production, went on to be an Olympic gold medalist. And then to start this year, he was just kind of okay. But now the playoffs are back. So Derek White is back, right? For the Stars of Boston, Tatum, 17 points, 14 rebounds. I do want to say for Boston fans, Tatum did struggle. He didn't shoot great, and he got a lot of these points in garbage time, let's be honest. But for Jaylen Brown, same thing. He looked okay, 16 points. They didn't really need him to have a crazy night because Peyton Pritchard had 20. Derek White had 30, right? That alone was enough to get the job done. But for Boston going forward, of course, I still think that they're going to complete this series. I think they're going to probably sweep the Orlando Magic. But Tatum landed on his wrist funny at the end of last game. So you want to keep an eye on that going forward. Of course, Jaylen Brown over the last month has been dealing with this right knee injury. So how healthy can these guys be going into the home stretch of this, I guess, hopefully, repeat championship run? For the Magic side, I do want to say Paolo and Franz showed up, or at least Paolo did. They did combine for 59 of the 86 team points, but 86 points against the reigning champions is never going to be enough. So they need to at least get some help around their star players if they can. Maybe they get a game, but honestly, at best, I think winning a half of basketball for the Magic is a win at this point. Now, as a biased fan, your 2025 NBA champions are going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers. Great to see them succeed without LeBron for once, right? But hey, they won the game by 21 points, and the Cleveland guards led this team. Mitchell had 30. Garland had 27, really all in the second half. And Ty Jerome, man, oh man, he might be the pickup of the year, and he had 28 off the bench. So as you can see, our guards really did everything for this team because Allen really had an off night. Mobley had an off night. They only combined for 21 points and 18 rebounds between the two big men. For reference, Bam Adebayo had 24-9 by his lonesome. So Bam Adebayo, no doubt about it, was the best player for the Heat in this game, and he did a great job against the talented bigs like Allen and Mobley. Let's not forget that Kel'el Ware is still down low. So for Bam to have 24-9 in a game with four dominant centers, it's pretty impressive. So Bam, I want to give him his flowers there. Now, I think the story of this series is what we knew coming into it. Coaching can only get you so far. Sometimes talent is just going to win, and the Cavaliers just have a better roster. The coaching advantage definitely goes to Miami. Heck, the experience advantage definitely goes to Miami for the most part. But again, the overall talent of the Cavaliers roster compared to the Heat without Jimmy Butler, it is a landslide. So the Cavaliers should handle business here. I do want to say, I think Spo's going to get one, but at most, Cavaliers will win this in a gentleman's sweep. And then we close it off with, I guess you can say, an upset. The Golden State Warriors won 95-88, handling the younger, inexperienced Houston Rockets on the road. Steph showed up 31 points. Jimmy had 25 to pair along with him. And honestly, as I mentioned on the podcast a couple weeks ago, Jimmy Butler's offensive aggressiveness is the X factor for this Warriors team. If this Warriors team wants to make a deep run and get that final championship of this dynasty, it needs to be on the back of Jimmy Butler being great and consistent offensively to help out Steph Curry and pretty much in these playoff games where Steph's going to have at least four hands on him every time he's on the court. But for the Rockets side of things, Sengun did all he could. 26-9. A lot of that came in the first half. Second half, well, didn't really do much. And he didn't really get much help, as I mentioned just a moment ago, because Fred VanVleet and Jalen Green have continued to struggle against the Warriors all season long. Jalen Green, I saw some Rockets fans over on their Discord pages. They were talking about maybe we bring Jalen Green off the bench, and I don't hate the idea. Now, I will say this. Jalen Green off the bench does sound crazy, but I do want to come to the defense of those, I guess, frustrated Rockets fans in this regard. If you have Jalen Green just start the first 5 minutes of the game off the bench, set the tone for your defense, slow down Steph Curry, maybe make sure he misses his first shot or two. Same with Jimmy Butler. And then 5, 6 minutes into the game, here comes Jalen Green. Here comes that offensive punch that we needed. And this is a guy that, hey, maybe that, I guess, benching could piss him off and say, hey, that could be all the motivation that he needs to come out and drop 20 to 25, which this offense desperately needs there in Houston. But ultimately, game two, this offense and these role players should play a lot better for Ime Udoka. And honestly, I think the Rockets will probably win game two. But if not, Warriors might make this quicker than we all imagine. But game one, reactions, takeaways, overreactions, whatever you want to call them, there they are. I do want to say game two's tonight. We have the Detroit Pistons and the New York Knicks. I think the Knicks are going to win that one. And then you also have a great matchup there between the Clippers and the Nuggets. Man, if the Clippers don't get this one, it might go 7 games, or hey, it might be over quicker than we all predicted. I'm excited for tonight. So let me know your predictions down below. And hey, just your overall thoughts on your team or a certain series. I'll get back to every single comment as quickly as I possibly can.